boys and girls, welcome back. Chapter 7 of Freddy. I cringed with fear at the thought. Mom had a free hand now. She could do what she liked with me. Anything that came into her head. Sheer panic overcame me. With effort, I managed to pull myself together sufficiently not to bite the bars of my cage like a demented skunk. I darted into the burrow and started rearranging my larders. It was high time I did this in any case, and it would probably calm me down. But it wasn't until I'd shifted every morsel of apple, every lettuce leaf, and sunflower seed from one larder to the other, and then 3 times again, that my brain regained its power of thought, more or less. Okay, I said to myself, now figure out what Mom is likely to do. She would take me back to the pet shop, of course, but only if I wasn't in peak condition, right? Except that had been Mom's pretext while Gregory was around. And now she didn't need it anymore. She could get rid of me for no reason at all. And Sophie? She would naturally want to keep me, but Mom would overrule her without blinking an eyelid. That much was distressingly obvious. No, Sophie couldn't help me. I would have to help myself. That was why the next item on my agenda was Operation Open the Door. I was able to make a start on it that very evening. Sophie had supper with Mom, then came into the bedroom and tipped out her backpack. Of course, she hadn't done any homework yet. I rose on my hind legs, gripping the cage door, and Sophie caught on at once. Want to come out? She asked. Of course you can. She carried the cage over to the table, put it down with her usual care, and opened the door. It had struck me that the best plan would be to make for my objective right away. If Sophie didn't play along at once, I would still have time for several more attempts. She would have to cooperate, that was clear. I couldn't possibly transport the whole thing into my cage in secret, behind her back, so to speak. I climbed out and scurried across the table. There, the pencil lay, long and thin, and better suited for use as a lever than all the other pencils and pens. I gripped the blunt end in my teeth. By turning my head sideways, I could be able to maneuver it through the cage door. No, Freddy! Okay, not this time. I let go of the pencil, and Sophie put it back. I waited a while, then started again from scratch. No, Freddy, I need that! Well, so do I thought. A lot more than you do, in fact. The next time I hung on to the pencil a bit longer. Sophie sighed when I finally let go, and she put it back in its place. I sighed too, inwardly. It seemed to be developing into a battle of wills. Okay, try again. No, Freddy, you can't have it. Sophie! Mom, outside the door. I was so startled I dropped the pencil. I pulled myself together at once and made another grab for it, but Sophie was too quick for me. Yes, Mom. Is that the hamster you're talking to? Congratulations, Mom. You're really astute, aren't you? Yes, he's playing with my pencil. You mean that creature isn't in his cage? A brilliant deduction. All she had to do was look in, but it obviously hadn't occurred to her. He's only on the table. He can't get down. Still, please, lock him up in his cage, and right now. Darn, she's gonna ruin it all. But why, Mom? Please do as I say, Sophie. Yes, Mom. And Sophie, that creature stays locked up from now on. We don't want it escaping and hiding somewhere in the apartment. Have I made myself clear? Yes, Mom. There it was. Mom's first attack on me. She marched off down the hall, and her footsteps sounded firm and self-satisfied. My only remaining hope lay in swift and decisive action. Sophie was still holding the pencil. I bounded over to her and sank my teeth into it. I bit it so hard I was scared it would snap, but I had to take the chance. Now that the thing was bitten between my teeth, it felt like it had always been there. Surprise had made Sophie let go, but she grabbed the pencil again and tugged. Give it, Freddy! No way! I screwed up my eyes and flattened my ears. Sophie continued to tug and shake the pencil like a dog worrying a bone. Freddy, let go! Not on your life, I thought. I hung on doggedly and let her shake me to and fro. Didn't she understand? Okay. She let go at last. I'll give it to you as a present. You can take it into the cage with you. As I think I've mentioned before, she's one in a million. It was midnight before I could finally get to work. Until then, Sophie had kept tossing and turning restlessly in her bed. Now she was lying still and breathing deeply. She was obviously fast asleep, so I could risk making a bit of noise. That was unavoidable, unfortunately. Fortunately, I looked forward to my attempt to open the door with rather mixed feelings, aware that all kinds of things could go wrong. But nothing did. I'd like to be able to report that opening the cage door was an extremely difficult task. The truth is, it was a breeze. Using my carousel as a platform, I inserted the tip of the pencil under the spring catch at the top of the door and applied my weight to the other end. There was a faint click, and the door opened. It didn't even topple outward, so I was able to fold it down without a sound. It had all been so easy, so childishly simple, that I was rather disconcerted and crouched on the open cage door for several seconds. It took me another few seconds to realize something. I was free! Really free this time. No one had let me out. I had freed myself by my own efforts. I suddenly felt so light I could have soared into the air. At the same time, my fur felt so thin that the faintest breath of air made me shiver. I shook myself. No weakness. Stay strong. Not now, I said to myself. Cautiously, I made my way along the shelf to the end I'd never been able to see before. Luck was with me. The shelf ended beside a window, and the curtain reached down to the floor. Things got rather exciting, for a hamster that at least. Once I climbed down there, because the smells that assailed me were almost as powerful as those given off by Mr. John. One of them was dog piddle. Probably. Sophie must have brought it home among the many scents on her shoes. My nose soon became positively numb with them, so I had to rely on my ears when exploring further. Having since become something of an expert on human beings, I guess I'm qualified to state that none of them has a clue how accurately golden hamsters can pick out sounds and identify them. For instance, even if a violent thunderstorm is raging, we can hear a mealworm wriggling someplace. Okay, so I'm exaggerating, but not a lot. What I mean to say is, it was child's play for me to locate Mom's breathing. And because it was customary in this household to leave all the doors open, at least just a crack, I knew this because of our legendary sense of hearing. I very soon had the pleasure of sitting beside Mom's bed. It was, if I may put it this way, a rather exciting situation. However, I resisted the urge to do something rash, like nibble Mom's nose, for instance. Instead, I concentrated on my real reason for being there. I wanted to get at her reading matter. But I failed to find any. I darted to and fro in search of a stack of books, but in vain. Then I chanced to look up, and in the glow from the streetlight outside the window, I saw them. Mom kept her books high up on the wall. I made out a whole series of shelves, one above the other, and all of them held books, countless books. I discovered a literary treasure house. My intellectual problem was solved. How to get at the books on the shelves was something to be figured out on my next excursion. I had achieved enough for one night. Feeling satisfied, I returned to Sophie's room and got back into my cage. And that was when I did, after all, encounter a minor problem. In order to shut the door, not even Sophie must be allowed to know that I could open it. I had to maneuver it back into place so that the catch engaged. One more using the pencil as a lever and the carousel as a platform. It took some doing, and if hamsters sweated, which they don't, my fur would have been soaked by the time I was through. And the job was finally done. I buried the pencil beneath some wood shavings. I didn't want Sophie deciding to take it back from me. And curled up in my burrow. Although it was the middle of the night, and I should really have been chirpy as a cricket, I was feeling sleepy. Probably because I'd canceled my mental red alert. The situation had eased. I could now exit my cage and hide someplace safe at a moment's notice. All my problems were under control. The mom problem in particular. Or so I thought. Thanks, boys and girls, for joining us for Chapter 7. Stay tuned next time for Chapter 8 of I, Freddy. See you soon. Bye.